Afternoon, everyone. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm all right. How's your good self?
Hanging in there as usual.
Better
How
late
you
than
doing?
never. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
we ran a few minutes late because I forgot to set up the studio. Usually I always do it the night before,
I,
but because of my headache, it kind of delayed things.
we're only 20 odd minutes late. It's no big deal. Nobody noticed. And we're so organised, folks, right? We don't even know what the fucking subject is. That's how
Actually,
organised.
we
I
figured it
do.
out. We
I
actually
remember.
we actually did figure it out, and we're going to be talking about the Khamar-Daban incident, which was a similar incident that was also in Russia.
That can be
Um,
my official job, remembering the subject.
Oh, right.
yeah,
I didn't know that we're on that I can see the subject.
yeah.
Um, so I'm going to be really honest, guys. I don't know about this, so I'll be like following yous tonight in suit because it's one thing that I've never ever heard is this one. So please excuse my ignorance.
That's okay. Go
You're
ahead,
good.
Nick. What you were saying before I interrupted you?
No, basically, what the again, I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly. The Khamar-Daban incident. It was a similar incident that occurred like the one back in 1959, where once again it involved a few college students, not as many of not that many as compared to the one from 59, but very similar because it was once again out in another area of Russia. This was on August 2nd of 1993, and I don't even know how to say the name. Buryati. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but
Briatia, I think.
Croatia. Yes, thank you. So, and if you look at the information pretty carefully, you'll see almost kind of a connection between the two events from 59 and 93.
And they were in the
I,
same
I'm
area.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up, guys, because really it's no something that. Hey, guy, hey, Rita. In fact, that's what I'll need to ask you to do tomorrow night for me, Nick, is if you could read the comments because I can't see the comments, so be able it'll be left to you, my darling, if you don't mind, if you can read the comments as they come in.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, now that I've googled it, that is quite mysterious. See, because it's years after the Davlo Pass. It makes you do wonder if it's a reincarnation, well,
Like,
of the same circumstances, like
yeah.
it could be like connected.
Not to mention too that it happened over 40 years after the first time it happened. So it kind of almost makes you wonder, almost, is it possible that
Hey,
it's like a
Robert.
once in 40-year event? Like, how do we not know? Like, for example, not to bring my age up, I mean, I'm obviously almost 30. So this means is something like this going to happen another 10 years from now for 2033?
How bad would it be, right? If for talking's sake, hi Kim, hi everybody that's joined. I can't see your comments, so I do apologise. But hello everybody that joins. How you're saying that, Nick, right? What happens if that does happen? Surely then, if it happens in Russia, right? Surely then somebody will turn around and say, well, we've had the double case, this case, and the next case. Surely then there's got to be a connection somehow.
Right. It's what the heck, Kim? You're you're young Nick Massimi. I don't even know who the hell is that.
The thing I think that I'm reading, it was a rugged scenery has made a popular tourist sighting spot, but in 1993, 6 of those tourists would not make it out of the mountains alive. Now, if you think of the Dablo Pass, I can't even say it, but never mind, I'll take a run for it. That was actually 9 people And it's the same sort of, when I'm reading this and I'm reading 6 of those tourists would not make it out the mountains alive, it makes me do think, like, how the hell can they not notice that there's something out of place? If you've got 40 years ago, and then you've got obviously in 1993 and there's 6, and there's a few answers in the case, and the lone survivor has refused to talk about the traumatic event since her first statement to police in 1993. What does that tell you? They're obviously connected.
They're connected, and it also would show that obviously would show that something really bad and traumatic must have happened. I mean, there's got to be quite a good reason why the lone survivor will not talk about it. It had to have been something extremely horrific, because and that's also one thing that differentiates it from the Diatlov Pass incident, because there were no survivors whatsoever to that one. Here you do have a witness, a survivor, but again, I mean, there's probably no telling what must have went through that person's head.
And to be fair, right, I know it's just a film, right, but the film that comes into my head when I'm reading this and out is a film called Hell House. Don't know if MD's seen it, but basically what it is, it's this haunted house that people go and investigate and have parties in, and the 3 films are basically the same. And what stands out to me is this, I think it's the second film where the ending is that the woman's in the police station and she's giving her evidence and she's crying and hysterical, and it just kind of, when I read that, that's what I kind of got for it. Also, again, the same circumstances, the 41-year-old who's a survivor, I suppose, was an experienced hiking instructor in Cyprus, and it just makes me think, well, if all these people are experienced to deal with weather that's as bad as what it is, then obviously, like, you've got to question that. You know, they're experienced, they know the temperatures that they have to come up against. There's just something that's not right, and it doesn't make sense.
I think in some sort of way it does, because again, just part of it is also the similarity of it. It's just, and it's also, once again, just like the one from 59, we're also talking about a rural mountainous region of Russia where not too many, if anybody, lives. So there's no telling of how it could just be simply a coincidence from the one from 59.
I don't know about you, Nick, but I think you and me and Rosie should go on a road trip to Russia and climb this mountain to see what the hell happens here, because you know.
Well, it makes me think about, we were talking about a theory about it being cursed.
It could be. It could be, but
very well be, yeah. Hey, Eric.
Eric, and I found out that the hate in Russia is brown.
Yeah.
Cool.
I figured it would be. Hey, Annette.
Hey, Annette. Sorry, guys. As I said, sorry again that I can't see any of your comments. I'm working off the tablets as my laptop went to heaven. But it does, when I'm reading the story, it's talking obviously about that hiking instructor that's obviously like experienced. And it was her and her 6-year students that went to this mountain range. She was very experienced in the area, which was a popular tourist spot and considered a very safe place to hike, especially in the summer. And her students had trained with her for the trip, and she was very close to them all. And it just seems to be that, like, if it's meant to be a safe place, then surely, like, I'm trying to build up a picture here and thinking, like, mountains, there's not going to be, you know, many people that go there, so it's going to be quiet. The problem is, are these sites, this site, and the one that happened in 53, isn't it?
59.
59. If they fall in the ley line, a government, like test centres, know how they have like for bombs, like test centres.
Right.
I'm thinking, is there something on the ley line that runs? See, I would need to see a map. Know that I'm good with ley lines. I couldn't ley line my way out of brothel, but but it does make you think, is it something on the ley line?
Very likely. I mean, I
Mhm.
didn't even think about that, to be honest.
I,
The one thing I should probably also point out too, it's like when these hikers basically go out to such like in a country like Russia that has again a very rural, that is still to this day, much of it still very rural, with a relatively small, sparsely small populated areas throughout the entire country. If you're basically gonna be hiking in an area like especially in the mountains. I mean, yeah, you do have, yes, you have these risks too in other countries, including the US, like the Rocky or Appalachian Mountains, but in the mountains of Russia, though, if you're going to be hiking, you definitely better be prepared for basically the worst, because it's one of the few areas saying, hey, if you go missing, I mean, we'll try to look for you, but nobody's going to be able to come out to save you because there's no towns or anything for miles. So you're really, for the most part, kind of crossing to the point of no possible return, because there's a lot of risks when you're going to an area, when you're hiking in an area like that, because there's just not that many people.
and also what stands out to me is when I look at the age differences between obviously the first set of hikers and the set of hikers, two of the ages make me feel a wee bit uncomfortable because one was 16 and one was 15. And I just think that's a wee bit, mind you, it's Russia, different countries, different thingies. On August the 2nd, 1993, the group of 7 arrived at the mountain range in the town, I can't pronounce that town in Russia, excited for their journey into the mountains. The weather forecast promised them clear sunny skies. And obviously the
Marino.
teacher, yep, see, I don't know why I say that wrong. Obviously the instructor and her students were one of the 3 hiking groups in the area, one of which was being led by her daughter, and the 2 groups had plans to meet up on August the 5th when their hiking routes would cross paths. All of the 6 students were ready to begin their hike, as this was their chance to prove themselves experienced hikers. And this journey had been planned for months, and as a result, the group had become close. And it seems to be on the first 2 days of the hike went better than planned. They were there in good timing, pushing themselves hard, but it seems to be the day before they were due to the crossover that things began to take a downhill spiral, and they were hit with a rainstorm, which you would kind of think rainstorm will. But apparently the supply-soaked journey was slowed down by the added weight, and that's when they decided to camp out in an exposed location despite there being tree cover no far away. They weren't able to build a fire that night, but were still good spirits. And it seems that everything was fine the morning after. So it does, when you really do listen, when you really do listen, when you really read this story. As I said, this is one, guys, that every day's a school day. So this is one that I'd never ever had heard about. So it's really good that you guys have.
If
You
you
have picked up.
continue reading it, it gets even more mysterious.
Right.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that
Doesn't
you'd
sound
have
like
picked.
Bigfoot. It doesn't sound like aliens. It sounds like poison, curse, or just some freak scientific accident that you can't really explain that probably would just only happen in that area. Like just something that's
Mhm.
like probably gone too long without being investigated because the truth was never actually told in detail until a while after the bodies and everybody had been moved and everything. The lady wouldn't tell anybody anything until afterwards. Then she went back to tell a story. So I don't know if they would have had any way to go back and get the evidence because you have to do it immediately, like to try to get evidence or figure out what's going on. You're supposed to immediately be able to act and come in on the scene and like collect your specimens and like, like kind of put your story together about what happened. And she never
Right.
told anybody until later when that was too late to go back and fact check or go back. And it makes me kind of wonder why she did that.
Yeah.
But then you don't know what she's frightened of. You don't know if maybe she was getting worried of government, worried that were people going to believe her?
Or were people threatening her too, saying you say anything about it? Kind of
Or
like the Men in
threatening
Black,
her,
like
blaming her for killing them.
yeah, or kind of like the Men in Black theory, like how they often use when something unusual occurs, they often usually approach the sole witness and often say, "You tell anybody about this, we're gonna lock you up, we're gonna kill you, we're gonna hurt your family." I mean, yeah, it's probably more government related, but even you can even throw Men in Black in that case, which is probably the reason why the sole witness is not saying anything because she's probably been told either by these Men in Black or by the government to keep her mouth shut. And just to point out too with Eric, yeah, I mean maybe to a lesser degree involved in these deaths, maybe even a Yeti, much like the one from '59, but I don't think the bodies in this case were as mutilated as the one in '93 were as mutilated as the ones from '59.
They weren't mutilated, but the way that they died was some of it was self-inflicted wounds.
Right.
Like they did it to themselves. And then
Eric.
it makes me wonder, did those people before have some kind of sickness or a madness that took over their minds and made them like torture each other and themselves?
Could have been, like I said a couple weeks ago, what if it was some kind of case of Wendigo? I mean, even though it's unlikely, maybe some case of Wendigo psychosis, maybe. But then
It
again,
almost makes me feel like it's like a haunting, actually.
yeah, or yeah, maybe it's some haunting or some curse.
Possession or haunting, some kind of
Well, you
curse
have to
type
think.
thing.
Well, you have to think too. If you think about it, much like what we have here in the U.S., how they always say, like in terms of like when we were talking about the see, I keep forgetting that the native Russians. I keep forgetting the group name.
Every time.
Every time I see again, I'm just not that familiar with it. But no, what I was going to say is much like Native American lands that we have here in the United States, where some areas, are said to be cursed, or areas that are not to be disturbed, like an ancient burial ground. Perhaps that could be the same thing too. In this case, for Native Russians, is maybe it's some burial ground or some sacred
The
land.
Mansi tribe.
What's that?
The Mansi tribe.
Okay, I gotta write that down next time. I gotta write that down. The
I must have. And you go, Nick.
no, I was gonna say maybe it was some sacred area of the Mansi that either they cursed it or they specifically said this area was not to be disturbed. So very no different than again like Native American landscapes we have in parts of the United States.
It reminds me even actually kind of witchcraft or voodoo as well.
Yeah. Or
what I was going to say was when I'm reading this, right? It's
well, Eric. He's like take notes, Nick.
the group set off. So obviously the next day they've managed to set down the mountain, but it was only a few minutes to the bus district. And when I'm reading this, I'm like kind of like, oh wow. Sasha, who was at the back of the group, began to scream. When everybody turned round, they saw he was bleeding from his eyes and ears and frothing at the mouth. He fell to the ground, convulsion, and then went still, which makes you think, is it airborne?
Or was it what they ate for breakfast?
No, there's nothing that bad, unless it was one of their cookings was shite.
What if someone brought poison and poisoned them, or someone had a way to poison them? That could have, that's what I'm saying. Like, did someone put something in the food?
I wouldn't think it was that bad to make their eyes and ears bleed.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's
like
if it was poison, that would have had to have been some pretty powerful stuff.
It kind of
the
reminds me. Have you seen Fringe before?
friend.
I've heard of
Joke.
Fringe, but
No,
never
There was
really heard too much about
there
it.
was a secret a secret lab underneath the college, and these people were working there. It wasn't based on a true story, by the way. This is fictional. And they had concocted some kind of lab created killing, concoction, and how it took effect is a guy put it in a pen, an EpiPen, or like the pen. What's the pen that you give yourself, like you're diabetic and you give yourself a shot? He put it in one of those and gave himself a shot, and it basically almost like turned him inside out. And then everyone around him, it did the same thing.
I'm kind of thinking it reminds me of the film VHS when it's
Oh, I've
talking
seen that
about
film. Yeah,
the eyes, the nose are pouring the blood, and that's what I kind of
I
not
remember
so much
that.
as frothing at the mouth, but the eyes and ears. And as I go further on, that woman that was instructor got it as well, but hers was I don't know. I've lost my thought there. She was the same. She cried out, and as they turned round and ran to her, they saw she was having the same symptoms, but her eyes and nose were pouring the blood, and she was frothing at the mouth. She convulsed and then collapsed on top of the first guy. And the first person that got to her was the next one to collapse, grabbing at her throat as though she couldn't breathe, and she slowly crawled over to a nearby rock and bashed her head against it until she went limp. And again, this reminds me of VHS, and it's the one in VHS Spiral. For nobody that's seen VHS at all, it's like a film based on mini short films that apparently cause viruses. Um, and the only way to describe it as the one that I'm referring to is it's about a filmmaker. One of the short films was about obviously, but it's not a short film. He's actually the main character in the middle of the short films, but he's a filmmaker looking to make it high. And he sees this like ice cream van like drive by, so he runs out to film it. And while his girlfriend gets the phone, her nose, she starts going like that in her eyes, and she walks out the middle. It's a really fucked up film, but a really good film. But
It is.
this is what it kind of reminds me when it's saying about the blood in the eyes and obviously the nose. And when I'm thinking of viral, I'm thinking of the like when he gets trapped into the van and she starts banging her head off the side. That's kind of reminds me, but
Was it a
I
virus? You
wouldn't.
said
But
virus.
it's like it's kind of mad because it looks like it's like basically like VHS symptoms, but that's not real. So
Right. Yeah, Eric says those symptoms are signs of poisoning. He also says that rat poison will do that.
And I think high levels of arsenic as well. And I just looked up poisoning in humans that can excrete blood from the nose and the eyes, and it says tetrahydrozoline poisoning.
Eric also points out too, well, convulsions and
Cyanide.
foaming at the mouth and trying to smash your head in are signs of extreme rabies.
That could be something too that would actually,
Yeah,
I was thinking like
um,
48 days later. Is it 48
28
days
days
later?
later.
But yeah, I get just
Yeah.
so mixed up with the numbers. I was thinking of
That's
that
good.
yeah.
That's a good
too.
movie too, by the way.
So then it says
Breaking. Is
the
it
other
going to a
two
movie like
both
that?
when both ran when Dennis hid behind a rock, and one of them stood unable to move, having just heard three of our close friends seemingly die within only a few minutes. And the two collapsed while running and died in a similar manner, throwing up blood and clawing at their own throats, tearing their clothes off, realising they were only ones left. So it actually sounds really pretty scary. This that's just, and it's just kind of like
You know what it also
what.
reminds me of? This is going to sound way out there, but there were various proven in experiments using mind control on humans.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
also kind of reminds me of something to that effect as well, like someone or something that could have very concentrated high skill in mind control that could actually use that on those people, and they would all exude like they would all show those kind of similar type of um, symptoms.
Mhm. The I mean, the one of the theories that I'm reading is the hikers saw something they shouldn't have. This theory proposes that perhaps the hikers walked in on some sort of Russian military experiment in the mountains and were killed for what they saw. Their deaths were so covered up by the police and medical examiner. It's true that the group had derived from the usual route through the region, so it's possible that this change of plans led them to a group of experimenters. Now, if you think back to the Agbo Pass, that's exactly what they were saying. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, the other thing that you've got to remember about these mountains for reading, that it's a very public area, with multiple groups of tourists travelling through it at any given time in the summer. But if you think about it, if they've been on course and then they went off course, it could be somewhere where nobody really goes.
Well, actually, I just thought of this. This just came up in my head too. Is what if an area like this, because like how we've been talking about how it could have been involving something with the Russian government. Maybe it's not marked like we have here in the U.S. and other areas, but how do we also not know that this could be like Russia's version of Area 51? Because again, if it's something
Or
involved with the
some kind of
government,
radiation or something was like
yeah,
being emitted from that area, or a really high um, frequency on
yeah,
some kind of like secret testing or something that
yeah,
they were
a
doing in that
testing
area.
area. I mean, it's probably an area that they've intentionally left unmarked, not like with Area 51 where all of it's fenced off and there's weapons all over the place. If you trespass, it's just there, and you happen to come across one of the experiments saying, intruders, shoot them at will or poison them, whatever, just to kill these kids. I mean, it's just an idea, but it could be maybe some kind of Area 51 like location.
Aye. Sorry about this, guys. I've got my wee kitten that's trying to eat everything and trying to get on screen. She's a bloody pest. But I totally hear what you're saying, Nick. What if there is, like an Area 51 in Russia that we don't know about? What if they are carrying out illegal maybe tests?
Yeah, or
What if they
experiments.
were even walking on top of something that emitted that kind of frequency? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that
Like
too.
an underground hidden bunker of some type or a lab of some type
Or a
that you couldn't
facility.
actually see. Yeah, or a facility that actually emitted that kind of toxins, and like they weren't aware of it,
Get it?
because what you'd basically do is like have to say, okay, like I'm a scientist and I study the brain and how things affect the brain and what parts of the brain are affected in nerves that can what can cause this to happen to the human body. Is it going to be like scientific? Is it going to be like man-made? Like, what are the different kinds of things? And like sit down and say, okay, what came from this area that's like that, and
Right.
multiple different incidences and occurrences that were tragic.
I've got a parrot on my shoulder. Now she's gone.
What?
Um, Eris was on top of my shoulder there. A another one that they're saying is a nerve agent killed the hikers. Many people have pointed out that the symptoms described are consistent with death by chemical weaponry. That can affect your nerves.
Yeah, that's what
Mhm.
Eric said. Oh yeah, nerve gas will cause a lot of those symptoms too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other
Um,
gases, not just nerve gas. Like if you
Yeah,
go back
there's
to
a
like
there's a
World
lot of
War
others
One,
that could.
World War Two, Vietnam, there
uh-huh.
were all different other kinds of gases that caused things like this to happen. That like it hasn't even been proven.
I
You
think
know, like
even
Apparently,
mustard gas. I think
Mhm.
mustard gas might even be one of those that could also which is extremely a toxic type of gas, which I not only can affect the nerves, but can affect the entire body and death within
yeah,
minutes.
and I
So it
don't
could
even
be another
remember what
the,
possible
Agent Orange did because Agent Orange has caused a lot of
Agent Orange,
cancer and
yeah,
deaths in many people
some
that were
type of
in
course,
those tours.
some
um,
type of pesticides.
Hmm.
apparently there's a YouTube video. So if I guys after the show, what I'll do is I'll tag you three, and I'll put it up in the Simply Spooky group for you to see. But there was a guy that's a YouTuber, and he proposes that I'm not even saying that word because that's the word that always gets me. Isn't they take the piss out of me because I can't say it. Right there, you've heard it in the background, right? Nerve agent that killed the hikers may have been Novichok gas. Novichok gases are a class of nerve agents created by Russia up to 1993, which is the year of this incident. So that makes me think, if that's up to 1993, then that could be 1959 as well.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very
Um,
likely, especially like with the way how it was being used at that time.
Definitely. Because
59 and
what I'm
93, right? You said 59 and 93.
Yes.
Yep. And they are thought to be the deadliest nerve agents to exist, being 10 times more deadly than VX and 25 more deadly than sarin.
Yeah, it's highly toxic.
Right, excuse my ignorance, but that's knowing like the radiation for Chernobyl, isn't it? That's too different.
Yeah. Robert here, I'm going to come back to this comment in just a sec. He just recently said, look at the Black Death nearly killed half of Europe. I mean that was more of a disease, but I could see a similarity if it was like caused by a gas syndrome, like gas. Had it been that way, it probably would have had the same results.
So the Novichoks were used in the 1970s through the 1990s.
So
Robert,
that wouldn't answer the Dolovo Pass because that was in 59.
Possibly, but probably not as likely.
Mm.
Robert also
But
says
it
just like
could
COVID,
still
it was
have had a
man-made.
reserve of that. You know what I mean, huh?
No, I was just reading. I was
Oh,
just showing
just
this.
like
He said
COVID
just
was
like
man made.
COVID, it was
Yeah.
man-made. Yeah.
That's true.
So this would have been
Um,
3 years after the last usage of that toxic gas in war.
well,
So
what they're saying is the rainstorm plays a very key part in this. The rain could have washed a strong nerve agent that had been tested at most 4 or 5 months prior in a more discreet site up the mountains down to the hill as the morning sun evaporated the water from the rainstorm. Some of still hazardous agents went with it.
Would you guys excuse me just for a quick? I got to run upstairs quickly. I'll be right back.
What are you cooking tonight, Nicky boy?
No, I'm just grabbing some more water.
Oh, hey,
I'll be
don't
back.
you be. He's like that. You just run the show. I'm off.
I'll just be a
But let's all talk about Nick since he's not here.
so
um,
in 2002 in Russia, in Moscow, in a theater hostage crisis, it hasn't been disclosed exactly what was used, but it says that there was an undisclosed incapacitating agent used by Russian authorities in order to subdue the Chechen terrorists who had taken control of a crowded theater.
oh, I never knew that either. Um,
So if it could still exist, because if they're going to make some kind of like toxic or chemical weapon or a neurotoxic, agent to use in war, that they're going to have it in barrels somewhere, hidden somewhere
yeah.
where no one knows where it's at except extremely like
Mm-hmm.
high security clearance people. It could have still been what you said, the Novichoks, or it could
Uh,
be what they didn't identify, but they did say that it was an incapacitating agent. Could be any of those. There could still be Agent
mm-hmm.
Orange somewhere. There could still be mustard gas. There could still be,
Uh-huh.
nerve gas, all kinds of those things in a bunker somewhere or hidden
Mm-hmm.
somewhere that we don't know about.
I think we should all slag Nick for his love bureau that's in the background. That looks like he's set up for Valentine's Day. I'm going to give that boy some stick when he comes
Oh,
back
and it's
about that.
cute. I love that.
I'm only kidding on. They're
I have to
actually now
tell her
saying
that.
that the survivor of that incident, they think, well, this is one of the theories that her story, I'm presuming it's a her, was inaccurate. They're presuming what they're saying is when somebody undergoes a traumatic experience, they often misremember aspects of the experience, especially when they tell it years after, like
Mhm.
Vala did. Certain parts of the story could have been exaggerated by Vala by no
Or
fault of her own.
changed. Yeah.
The research surrounding the inaccuracy nature of eyewitness statements is extensive. It's possible that the hikers died exactly how the autopsy report concluded they did, which was hypothermia. But then that doesn't explain why she would have survived. So what they're saying is, oh, here he comes back. Stop talking about him, Rosie. Let's stop talking about him. Close him
Oh,
up.
what were we talking about again?
I'll just have to go back and rewind the
Well,
conversation.
I just want to hold the show up for 5 minutes. Nick, you've got the love bureau there. Look at the red lights. Hiya, Joanne.
Oh, you guys just noticed? Yeah, I got the
Yeah.
entire house decorated for Valentine's Day.
Oh, Nick, you wee love machine, you. I bet you the post.
Well, you've seen the other decorations I've had. It's not just Valentine's Day I have it decorated for. So this is where I always enjoy decorating a lot for different holidays. So it's always a lot of fun.
See, to me, I would love just 2 Halloweens. Fuck Valentine's Day. What I was saying there, Nick, was
getting warm in water. What? I don't know what he's talking about.
Listen, if that boy's awake getting loved up, I'm saying nothing.
What's up, Joanne? Cold minus 29 degrees Fahrenheit up in Canada. Is that up in?
Oh, wow.
I mean, she's in Canada, so it's got to be really cold up there.
What I was saying, Nick, was that one of the theories was that the survivor's story was inaccurate. And like what it's saying is that it's possible that the hikers died exactly how the autopsy reported was hypothermia, right? The way that they're trying to throw this theory was that
damn it, Joanne. Sorry. It was something Joanne had sent. It was something Joanne had sent me because she said check my messenger. She did send me something and trying to scare the hell out of me.
I'm not even asking, Nicholas.
I'm just gonna say that she's playing with my fear and phobia that I have.
Cockroaches.
You got it.
How did I know that?
I'm not clicking that link, Joanne.
I don't understand. But because obviously they were talking about before that about obviously the toxin. Now they're saying it could be contaminated water, but still again it wouldn't make any sense if one's saved. They're actually saying as well mushrooms was one of the theories.
Really?
And it's I'll just read this one. This one of the most interesting theories, in my opinion. I found this idea from a YouTube comment and did more research to add to it. This is the only theory I know of where Vela is actually affected by which killed the hikers, and eliminating some of the questions around her as seemingly being a total outliner compared to the other 6. But apparently the mushrooms.
Eric said, I'm sorry. No, Eric, far from that.
They're Bigfoot photos. How dare you? She's not that hairy. God.
You're muted, Lois.
She's frozen. Oh, there she is.
No, I was too busy shouting at Eris because
Too
she's
young.
notorious right now for trying to climb up my clays, and she's sitting there and then she's trying to claw me. I mean, my fingers are marked with claws, and now she's wondering what I'm up to. But it's what you're doing, you weirdo. She's trying to bite my fingers now because I'm on the live. So basically, like there is loads of theories, but I'm interested in the fact that some of it does connect with obviously the Darklow Pass. So in my theory, right, and I'm just throwing it out here, it could be military.
It's a very good likely idea. I mean, like we have been talking about a lot about like possible facilities or underground areas, and a lot of that usually is not only associated just with the government itself, but also associated with the military.
Definitely.
What's up, Josh? Ghosts in the groups. Oh, you're admin with Irene. Jeez, Joanne said when she said about how cold it was, not counting the wind chill, -4. My God, it is freezing up there.
That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Where's she at?
Hey, Bonnie.
I've been able to keep up with the chats, so that's why I haven't been.
I don't know. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking
Yeah,
it's a chemical. Like that's still like poisoning. If it's a release, into the atmosphere, some kind of government. I think it's governmental. That's what I think it is.
I honestly think when I think about it now, like how, for example, we have a lot of that secrecy for the U.S. government, but in my opinion, I think the Russian government is certainly far, far more secretive and also is a lot more strict with their rules and regulations when it comes to like witnesses. If they saw something that was certainly not out of the ordinary for everyday residents, I think they go a little bit more tougher and certainly a lot more rougher when it comes to secrecy with a country like Russia. So I think they're a lot more. I think they're a lot more tougher than the U.S. than our own U.S. government is.
It's harder for them. It's harder in America for the media to be controlled. There's always someone that's going to leak the truth, or someone that's going to stand up and like release their opinions.
Sorry, I do apologize there.
You're good. I was going to say, like in America and other countries, you're always going to have one whistleblower out there. Someone is going to say something and put it out on the media, even if they had been threatened with consequences that are going to follow. But in Russia, they really have complete control over everyone. So even if someone wanted to say something, they always will go as far, whatever possible, to keep their mouth shut, even if it brings death to them. And Josh also makes a good point. That's the same thing with China too.
Definitely. I mean, I thought Lois fell off the bed. No, my bloody cat's jumping at the tablet and trying to get my horn, and then like she's actually still doing it physically. She's looking about to see what like she could get up to. She wrecked my house today. Her and Ikora wrecked my house. Knocked everything down off my boyfriend's side. Was dragging the clothes about. Honestly, they've been wee shits all day, and she's literally sitting on my laptop, so it's pushing me like the tablet out the road.
Right.
She's a menace.
See, here Eric just made another good point, just similar to what I just said. Here in the U.S., you just get put in prison for treason. In Russia, they shoot you.
Well, funny enough that you should say that, Eric. My friend. Brother, he does like painting and decorating, and it used to take him abroad quite a lot than what he does, and he went to Singapore, and he says at 6 o'clock every night he could hear a bang, and he asked one of his friends that's been over there for many years, and he says, why is it at 6 o'clock every night you can hear a bang? And apparently in Singapore, that's them taking a prisoner out to shoot them.
Really?
6
Wow.
o'clock every night.
Jeez.
And that's why my pal's brother never ever wants to go back to Singapore. It's the only
Yes.
one thing that put me off with Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore, I mean, while not fully as controlling as Russia and China are, they have some of the strictest laws. Like even some of the simplest things that you do in a country like Singapore can be considered a crime. I mean, I'll just throw out an idea. This is probably the actual, like, in fact, the most notorious crime that can get you severely punished. Apparently it's illegal to chew bubble gum in Singapore, and you could actually end up getting sent to 3 years imprisonment for chewing gum in Singapore. It's crazy.
Hi, Sarah Louise. I can, don't worry about it, as I've always told you, it's on repeat, honey.
We were late ourselves.
Excuse me, to have a shouting match with Eddie.
It is madness, Vaughn.
But do you know what? Right, we criticise these countries for how strict they are. But if you look at the crime rates that, like, the likes say China has, Singapore has, Korea, you'll find that they're the most lowest of crime rates.
They
Surely
do.
how
Very
strict
low.
they are.
Yeah, because of the strict laws they have. So it makes any type of crime or like any type of group or gang or just a single-minded criminal makes it almost impossible for them to commit a crime.
It's also, if you look at some of the laws, and we really should cover this one night, but there's one of and I think it's China, you're not allowed to have Facebook, apparently.
Yeah, I believe there are 3 or 4 countries across the most of which I believe are in Asia, where Facebook is prohibited, and yes, that includes Russia, China, North Korea, and I forgot what the 4th one was, but there was at least 3 or 4 countries in which Facebook and other types of, I mean, it turns out they do have their own social media sites there, but it's only strictly just for that country. Anything beyond the borders, that's actually considered a crime in that country.
Well, I've got an interesting show next week if you guys fancy it for next Thursday with the Chernobyl.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Rosie?
You say Chernobyl?
Chernobyl, I absolutely love Chernobyl.
Sorry, I'm like going down a rabbit hole. I'm just like discovering different gases that are used, different effects that they cause, and what can cause.
I hope you're not thinking about gassing us too, Rosie.
Huh? What?
I hope you're not finding ways to gas us out.
I don't know, but I don't want to go to Russia anymore. Not until I know what's causing all that stuff.
Well, it also
we'd have to wear like hazmat suits and a gas mask, like a.
Guys, give me 2 minutes. See this kitten tonight? She's driving me nuts.
I just want to point this out, by the way, with what Josh just said. With cell phones, they post a lot in Russia, but I'm not sure if their internet is restricted. He knows in China they have thousands of paranormal internet shows, more than USA, but the government regulates them all. I am actually not surprised that they probably have a lot of paranormal shows and podcasts that we never, obviously being here on the Things Network and some of these other networks. I mean, we're always, as I think we're all familiar with, we're always trying to find new shows to add, especially from other countries. And if China wasn't so strict and didn't make it, prohibiting for people to use Facebook and all this stuff, we probably would have had a few of these shows here on some of our networks.
And it's not just that as well. It's the fact as well, I think is that, and I don't quote me, and if Irene's in the chat, she can answer this. But is Irene the only one in Japan that does paranormal?
Yeah.
I thought that. I didn't know if I was right or no. And
I found out. I just looked up too, and I think Joshua says it. Middle East to like Saudi Arabia, no Facebook. I'm not sure about Saudi Arabia. I just looked it up. The fourth country I was thinking of, it was Iran. That is the fourth country in which Facebook is strictly prohibited.
But yeah, I mean, it's I love Chernobyl as well, Eric. I'll give you a laugh, right? This will really make you laugh, right?
Chernobyl,
Me,
Ukraine.
me and my partner were watching. Was watching Chernobyl Diaries, right?
Yeah.
And this is how naive I am, right? So we're watching Chernobyl Diaries, and we got to the end of the film, and I can't remember what I said, but Stephen said, "Never believe anything that happens in films." That happens in the films, right? So the next thing you know, he watched a documentary in Chernobyl, and I went, no, is Chernobyl real?
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
That just shows. And then he says, of course Chernobyl's real. And I was like, ah, well, you tell me don't believe everything that happens in films.
Yes, gotcha. Yeah, they are strict. That's what it was.
Not one of my brightest moments.
What's this right here, Joanne just wrote? China is allowing people to have another child because of the population going down. I was going to say, I think China's a relatively sparse country too, aren't they? I mean, I know they have some very populated areas, but aren't they just as sparse?
Aye. I think so.
Also, Vaughn just wrote, yes, that's like Russia. They have their own networks. Also in Ukraine, they have underground networks. Apparently, that's the only way they could find out who was saved at the start of the. Yeah, I do remember. I do remember during the early parts of the war between Ukraine and Russia that, and there was video footage. You could probably find some of it now on YouTube and some other sites, but there are pieces of footage of like a lot of the residents of of Ukraine that were taking cover right at the start of the war. There's actually a very notorious clip that was actually shown on television of a little girl. She had to have been no more than maybe 9 or 10 years old, and she, in her Ukrainian language, she was singing it was actually from a Disney film. It was from the movie Frozen, singing a Ukrainian version of Let It Go. And it was, it's cute. It's sometimes even a little bit funny, but also it's kind of a little bit emotional almost because of what a lot of these people in Ukraine were going through with Russia.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it was quite a sight to see. So there's a number of videos involving these underground networks. Shooting at nuclear power plants in Ukraine in this war. Jeez,
that's terrible.
It's like they're trying to create like another Chernobyl almost. Yikes!
Huh.
Had a
meeting with David Letterman.
Do you know what? I'm just going to say, guys. See, Zelensky, he is honestly one of the best presidents across the whole entire world.
I think so too.
I think so too. But you know, and I can't agree more. I mean, I know this is kind of more of a political thing, but he's fantastic. And when he also came out to the U.S. to speak, you know, of our help that we've given. I mean, I heard he was supposed to do this for other countries, not just the U.S. You know, all the other countries who've allied with Ukraine in this. But just that speech alone was it was incredible. I was watching that live when he did that. So,
but you think, right? And this is no harm to any countries across the world, including America and the UK. But for what that man done when the war started and he went out and fought, who can honestly say across the whole wide world, including UK, who would ever do that for their country? Honestly, I always say
not very many people.
No, not many. He's basically just the type of person that I just wish every country. I just wish every country had.
Some of our older presidents would have done that back, decades ago.
I think so too.
Recently or lately, I don't think that very many people would have done that anyway.
I can't see Donald Trump running out into the field.
No.
Or Boris Johnson. So I wouldn't worry about
him.
Yeah.
I think
I
his
wouldn't
skin
either.
and hair emit their own frequency.
Right.
Listen, Scott, UK had the rain. You know, we had Boris Johnson. You get all the local radio stations in the world. It's called Radio
Radio
Gardener. Never heard of that.
Yeah, there
Interesting.
is quite a few videos. She's talking about the underground bunkers.
Scary, it is scary. So much
respect.
respect, definitely.
Yeah, and Vaughn, yeah, my pleasure sharing that information out. Spending the most money combined, Josh is saying. Yeah, we definitely are. But as far as it goes, I mean, in this case, with what's happening right now with Ukraine and Russia, it's totally worth, helping them out. So
Definitely.
for sure.
Hi.
Boris's
I have to get the name of Boris's hairdresser.
Please feel free to put the link in the comments so everyone can know.
Well, Joanne, if you want me to be really honest, that man didn't need a hairdresser. What he did was into the socket, and that just did his hair for the day, honestly. Do you know, it's just... But I've really enjoyed the subject tonight, guys. You have really pulled a cracker out of me tonight.
Yeah. I know we started a little bit
definitely...
later than usual, but we still made it through.
The bought a Bojo. No
What's
way.
this?
I would dread that.
What's
we
this?
would.
Some the thought of Bojo. No way. I would dread we would be in more danger. Jace.
What's Bojo?
I don't even know who Bojo is. Who the hell is that guy?
Right. I'll tell you what. I'll give you the terminology. Here's a lesson for the night for you. Right. Boris Johnson. Everybody calls Bojo.
Oh, I was thinking she meant Bono.
No.
From YouTube? I don't know. I was like, Bono?
It's like that's what we used to call Boris Johnson. The guy just... Do you know what? I love The Simpsons because The Simpsons predicted some of the stuff that was going to happen. And I'm telling
predictions of the future.
The future. Yeah. And honestly, guys, no way that... See, as soon as Trump was voted in, I tell everybody, money, pound to penny, Bojo's getting voted in. And what happened? He did. And do you know, I've never seen our country's mouth drop so much. Oh, but it's definitely... He was a character and a half. Sorry, I've not been... Oh, Bonnie, get well soon.
Feeling better.
I've told you to stay off that sherry.
Is her name Vaughn or Vonnie? Is it Vonnie?
I've been calling her Vaughn. I hope I'm saying that right.
Vaughn. But I call her Vonnie.
It might be Vaughn. I don't know.
It might be.
Because it's obviously not
Vaughn. But guys, thank you so much for tonight, and thanks for everything that you do. I do appreciate that. Oh, I need to speak to you too when we're off air about something.
I got to talk to you too, Lois, as well. It's it's actually trying to help you. Let's take care of that whole studio situation, so that way you have control over it.
I was going to say February the 14th is not around yet, Nick. Come on.
I think I already know what we're going to be talking about, actually, because I thought this would be the perfect topic to talk about since Valentine's Day will be just 2 weeks. I don't know about... I mean, I'd save it for that week of Valentine's Day, but for that week of Valentine's Day, we should talk about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yes.
Thank God. Because if you were told me we were going to talk about love and romance, I would have kicked your ass.
I knew what he was going to say. I think I read his mind. Real.
Oh my God. I wasn't even thinking of that one.
He's talking about the kind of love where you get loved to death. That's what he's talking about. Loving you to death.
See, that's what I love about me. Hate chick flicks and the whole romantic films, but see, if you want to talk to me about murders and Valentine's Day, I'll be your woman.
Don't do all that Valentine's lore.
I should probably point this out. Speaking of Valentine's Day, since we were all added to Emma Sanderson's group, I know she does a show of her own, and I'm actually supposed to be on her show on Valentine's Day to talk about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Ooh.
It'll be
Yeah.
great to actually. I'm really looking forward to that one. It'll be great to finally actually. I mean, I've spoken with Emma a few times, like online, but it'll be great to finally chat with her for the first time, face to face. So, I gotta say,
You just
Lois. I mean, I'm sure you probably know this already, but there's been a lot more paranormal podcast shows that are occurring throughout Scotland now. It's quite impressive.
yeah, yep. Well,
That's pretty cool,
regularly coming. Well, I'll just quickly advertise tomorrow's show in the live. Tomorrow, guys, tune in at Frighteners. We'll be talking to Scottish paranormal investigator Brigham Nicol.
Yep.
I nearly said his name wrong. Oops, he'll put me in the boots. But tune in, guys. You're going to hear about his journey. Oh, don't do all that. Yes, funny. Woo!
Yeah,
We don't do that.
You see right now, it was red before for Christmas. Now I got it all red red and green, but I got all red and actually pink too for Valentine's Day.
Sounds good. Oh, Nick, that's more my type of Valentine's.
Yeah,
Mine too, one.
referring about St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Some of the
Yeah,
best.
we did it. I thought me and Lois did a show about that last year on Valentine's Day. Or it might have been on
Yep.
Hey Boo when I did it. Didn't we?
I
On
can't
Valentine's
remember.
Day.
I don't remember
It
myself.
was on Valentine's Day.
It's a popular subject to talk around during that time.
Do you know the
That's why I
problem
like it,
is?
'cause I already know about it.
I do that many podcasts. I can't remember half the subjects I've talked about. I'm just like, well, but Rigger is a really good a really good investigator, guys. Please tune in. He's a great laugh as well. He's as mad as a box of frogs. But I wouldn't have him any other way. But he is really informative. If you guys have not already check out his group. It's called Scottish Paranormal Investigations Group. I'm so proud because I've taken me ages to actually memorise that. He's also got a podcast called Paranormal Hangover. If you've, he is such a nice guy. If you guys have not already checked it out, check it out. I love Rigger's investigation ways. What he does is he investigates and then he'll do a paranormal hangover, which just sums it up where he gives evidence. And I actually appeared on last week's show.
Oh, you did?
And
Really?
I did, yes, I did. And I was very nervous. See, being on somebody else's show, you're always fear. What do you say? What you don't say? And it was honestly Rigger made me feel comfortable. He was like, "Look, this is how that we go," and I was like, "Oh, very nice." But definitely worth checking out, guys. But as again, we've spoke about Frighteners. When we go through to the
Sorry, Lois. Just gotta read this what Annette said. Roses are red, violets are blue. Oh, and go stuff you. But very quickly, Joe from Insane Asylum's on. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Well, let them know I put my hand somewhere.
Matter than a box of frogs.
Matter than a box of frogs.
Definitely. But yeah, he's definitely Rigger's worth a watch. I mean, there is, and I must admit, I was actually thinking to myself when I seen Emma's group that if they're doing podcasts, that's why I came to the. I'll talk to you guys first about something.
Sounds good. Yeah, Joe was watching. Unfortunately, you just came in right as we were about to end, but I'll be back on later tonight with Supernatural Talk if you want to tune into that. So
definitely.
So yeah, I don't really have much really to say myself. So I guess we could end it right here, I assume.
Yep.
All right.
I'm waiting.
Well, we'll talk backstage. Everyone who watched, thanks for tuning in. And
thank you. Over to get my hand in the camera. Bye.
We'll see some of you guys tonight and also tomorrow. Take care.